Okay, now welcome for coming for the book discussion on the foundations of Buddhism written by the Rupert Gethin, and we come to the chapter 6, No Self, Personal Continuity and Dependent Arising. Anyway, this is one of the interesting topic. I'm sure mostly the Westerner who, at least in the philosophy department, those who are in the university, when they study Buddhism, they definitely know Buddhism have the concept of called no self concept. And it's become a really one of the very important thing, even though there are lots of papers about this, what the no selves mean in Buddhism, but definitely lots of people who are studying Buddhism, they know that one of the really important notions in Buddhism is a no self concept. Okay. And but what does a no self mean? And also even when you learn Mahayana as well. So when you talk about in Mahayana, when you addressing the concept of sunyata or emptiness, so then it's also have highly to do with the concept of no self. In other words, it's believed that in general, when in Buddhist circle, if anyone that they say I believe in the self, yeah, of course you could say I still cannot 100% convinced that there's no self, but at least, just like, when you're in that Buddhist circle and you say, in any Buddhist tradition, if you say, I still believe in the self, then definitely nobody recognizes you as a Buddhist circle, right? So in other words, even in the history in Buddhism, so there's some very similar concept to the self, what we call the Buddha, 就是我们叫 Buddha, anyway, it's mean a person. Being one of the actually biggest school in India, but now they completely died out now after the Muslim, conquer India. But even though they have a very similar concept like a self, but when you ask them, do you mean that you believe there's a self? No, they say no. Okay. In other words, I want to say in Buddhist circle, even however much you want to argue that your idea may be very similar to the concept of the self. Later we are going to address to the Indian religion. So then very clearly in Buddhist circle, you don't claim you believe in self, because once you say you believe in self, then you are definitely not a Buddhist. Okay. So this chapter is very important because of course not necessarily everybody will agree with how you look at it, but then definitely, as I say, the concept of no self is one of the main topics in Buddhism. One of the way if you ask a person, are you a Buddhist? But if you say, yeah, I know Buddhism talk about no self, but I still believe in self, that's fine. But you cannot say, no, the Buddha believe in self. Then definitely that's not Buddhism, okay? Now that's why this is, it's a very interesting topic and it's a really difficult topic. And especially the whole Mahayana also have a different perspective. I won't say different perspective. Sometimes they think they have a better perspective. Whatever it is, they still wanted to stand up, as like they think they can explain better how to understand the no self. Okay, all right. So I think this book is interesting. Firstly, which is usually, especially for Chinese people, because hardly they know about Indian background. So this book, at least it started to tell you what the Indian think about the self is about. So because of that, somehow you have a little idea about how Indian religion, like what we usually call as a Hindu. But Hindu is a big name, so it's very hard to talk what are they. But in general, we call it as a Hindu. And the Hindu think that definitely believe in itself. And then at the time, when after the Buddha, again, enlightenment, according to Buddhist understanding, say that then the Buddha definitely, one of the teachings he thinks is very hard to convince what the religion in India is about this concept. This is one of the difficult. And the second is the dependent origination. That's why in the topic here, they mention about personal continuity and the dependent arising, because you have to also address the concept of no self with in connection to the dependent origination. 缘起，我们叫缘起论。Okay. All right, why don't we just read? I think today we cannot finish all this because this is a big topic. People can write many PhD theses on this topic already. And this is also certainly directly to do with the enlightenment and directly to do with the Nibbana concept too. That's why this is a big topic. And I guess today, if you're lucky, we can actually finish by kind of like by page 135, just maybe 2 pages. Okay, having said that, we should just read through it first. The subtitle, the first subtitle of the No Self on chapter 6 is The Buddhist Critique of Self as Unchanging. Okay. Where do you want to begin to read? Maybe this side. I think usually we have a tradition is left side, so if you don't want, you just pass, or if you want to read, yeah. Okay. The Buddhist critique of the self as unchanging. Yeah.
The story of the joining monk in the
Kevata
Sutta, see above, page 113 to 14, is in fact a very precise parable of Buddhist thought. To understand the nature of dukkha is precisely to reach the limits of the world. Ultimately, the monk in the story is directed to the nature of the mind itself. For it is here that the secret of the arising of the world, the ceasing of the world, and the way leading to the ceasing of the world is to be found. Thus, although from a particular perspective the elaborate cosmology outlined in the previous chapter does indeed present the complete Buddhist description of dukkha. Nevertheless, it is in the analysis of individual experience of the world. This phantom lone body with its perceptions and the mind, that dukkha's ultimate nature is to be penetrated. In this chapter, I wish to turn to the basic principles of the Buddhist understanding of our individual experience of the world and of consciousness and its working.
Okay, right. Yeah, thank you. Good. No, in the future you will be a good speaker.
So the Buddhist critics of the notion of self or
Atman
is
rooted
in a specific historical context and initially directed towards particular understandings of the notion of self. The evidence of
Brahmanical, Jain,
and the Buddhist source points towards the existence in North India of the 5th century BC of a considerable variety of views and theories concerning the ultimate nature of the individual and his destiny.
Okay, all right. And then next one, among the questions.
Among the questions, the early Brahmanical texts known as the Upanishad seek to explore are to whom or what the various experiences and parts of a being belong, who or what controls them, what is the ultimate nature of a being's self, The standard term that the Upanishad use for the self in its ultimate nature is Atman, which, although also employed as the ordinary word for self in Sanskrit, may etymologically be derived from a word originally meaning breath. For the early Upanishads, such as the
Brihadaranyaka. Okay.
And Chandogya.
No, Chandogya.
6th century BCE, the self in its ultimate nature is a mysterious, ungraspable entity. It is unseen seer, the unheard hearer, the unsought thinker, the unknown knower. It is the inner controller. It is what is immortal in us. Although it is much easier to say what it is not than to specify it concretely, certain quite definite things can be said of it. The ultimate metaphysical, The ultimate metaphysical self is the unchanging, constant, underlying all our various and unstable experiences. As such, it is indestructible and ultimately unaffected by any specific experience and quite beyond suffering.
All right. The next one you read it? The self is not...
The self is not this and not that. Ungraspable, it is certainly not grasped. Indestructible, it is certainly not destroyed. Without clinging, it is certainly not clung to. Unbound, it comes to no harm. It does not suffer.
All right. Next one. Yeah.
Furthermore, the immortal, indestructible Atman, that is the ultimate self, is, according to the early Upanishads, to be identified with the underlying ground of all reality known as Brahman. In the final analysis, I am not something different from the underlying ground of the universe itself. This is the famous
Upanishadic
equation of Atman and Brahman. This does not appear to be the only notion of the Atman known to a Buddhist text. In later Indian thought, we find the concept of a plurality of eternal, unchanging selves, each corresponding in some way to individual beings in the world. Such a teaching is characteristic of the Indian schools of philosophy known as Samkhya and Yoga, and seems to be adumbrated in the
Upanishad.
Okay, and give me the second one too.
Shvetaswantara. Anyway, you could just say Shwet Aswatara. It's all right, yeah. You pronounce it Shwet, S-W-E-T, Shwet, is Aswa Tara. Yeah, it's 3 words, yeah. It's okay. Shwet Asta. That's why the best way to pronounce it is separate it. Shwet Aswa Tara. Yeah. Okay, what we have. Yeah.
What we have then in the notions of both the universal and individual Atman is an assumption of an unchanging and constant self that somehow underlies and is the basis for the variety of changing experiences. Moreover, this unchanging self is to be identified as what we ultimately are and as beyond suffering. It is this general understanding of the self that early Buddhist thought seeks to examine and question.
Okay, thank you. I think we can read one more paragraph and then we can have a little discussion on that. Yeah.
While this specific historical context dictates the turn of reference, it is nonetheless the case that the issue raised by the Buddhist critique of self touch on the universal problem of personal identity. Our everyday linguistic usage of terms such as I amounts in practice to an understanding of self as precisely an unchanging constant beyond experiences. Behind experiences. Thus, when someone declares, I was feeling sad, but now I am feeling happy, he or she implies by the term I that there is a constant, unchanging thing that underlies and links the quite different experiences of happiness and sadness. Linguistic usage, and no doubt certain emotional and psychological circumstances predispose us to an understanding of personal identity and selfhood in terms of an I that exists as an autonomous individual and who has various experiences. In this way, I assume, perhaps unconsciously, that although my experience may vary, there is something, me, that remains constant. In other words, it only makes sense to talk in terms of my having experience if there is a constant I that can somehow be considered apart from and separated from those experiences. It is in this conceptual framework that Buddhist thought begins to ask various questions about the nature of I, the constant, unchanging self underlying experience.
Okay, now we at least know, it looks like in a historical in India, so there was certain concept about the self there, and which is actually is not just a normal concept, and is very important for their religious experience as well. But then also we also come, so far what we have read, we come to understand that in Buddhism looks like they have a different approach already. You know, I give you the notes here. Why don't we just go to the notes first, especially for people who actually, I mean, even though you're Hindu, you may not read this also, but especially if you really study Buddhism, traditionally, and when I say traditional, and usually you definitely have to read something about like what the Buddha actually addressing the issue of the self in India. Okay. Now here, just now you were asking the word, because Shvetaswara Upanishad is a very difficult term to read. It's a three words combined together. I did put it here. It's because this Upanishad belong to the Yajurveda. You have to understand, actually during the Buddha's time, in Indian religion, they have ancient texts, they so-called a sacred text, or you could say holy text to them. Nowadays you call as a four Veda, okay? But actually during the, well, that's why based on the Buddhist sources, our understanding is during the Buddha's time, maybe just only three Vedas were there, not only four. Veda is a Fei Tuo in Chinese. So it's, you just understand almost like a Bible, okay? They have a sacred text. Before the Buddha was there, was born, in other words, and they believe in Indian tradition, the Vedas came few thousand years ago, okay, long ago. And one of the Veda, as I say, there are four Vedas, but at least during the Buddha's time in the Buddhist text only mentioned three Vedas, okay. But one of the Vedas is this one, it's called Yajurveda, okay. So Yajurveda also consists of many texts. One of the texts included is called Shvetaswara, okay. Shwet Aswatara, okay. Anyway, the word Shwet usually could be meant by that color itself, mean the white color, okay. Ashwa mean the horse. Tara is mean crossover, okay. So if you want to translate what I mean by Shwet Aswa Tara, it could say the one who carries beyond on the white horse, okay. Or you could say that the white horse carry something and go beyond it. Well, anyway, there's a lot of scholarly later have a lot of conjecture why the name is being called. Might be, you know, the Aryan people, what usually in India they call Aryan, but in American usually you pronounce it Aryan. Of course, you know the Nazi later on used the word Aryan too, because that represents noble. So it's said in the Aryan people in the earlier time, so some conjecture because in earlier time, of course, a white horse also represent mean pure, powerful, right? And always bring you to go to the good place, you know, like that. I'm sure if you look at the European kind of mythology, the white horse is always something really special, okay? The word Upanishad, actually, Upanishad from the, anyway, I don't want to say too much of the grammatically. Generally mean, Upanishad mean you get close to. Let's say I want to study something in all day. You need to sit close to the teacher and listen to what he was telling you. So Upanishad mean sit next to the, I know. So in other words, that represent you learn something, okay? So the whole word you could translate as like the one who carries beyond on white horse, sit next to. And anyway, that is as an, or you could say Upanishad as a sacred text. Okay. Now in this sacred text here, they have 6 chapters, and some people believe that this 6th chapter, if you want to read yoga or especially the meditation of how the meditation to do with the unification with God. And this is definitely is one of the very important sacred texts to read or to learn. Okay. All right. Now, so I'm not going to read the Sanskrit. I don't think everyone are interested with that. But I think why I want to put the Sanskrit here, one other thing is that you read some characters, very interesting character. Okay. Always we say that it's like hanging the clothes, right? You have the, you know, in old day, even now, you hang the clothes on the ropes, right? So there's a like different color clothes. Anyway, but I mean, why I put there is also because even though I was copied the translation from other, but then later I found there was lots of mistakes. So there are lots of translations. I have a Greek modification there already. I changed, even though it was copied from sometimes from a text or from internet or what. So I changed some of that, but I don't think I like the translation. Anyway, now let's look at the first one. The Brahma students say, okay, anyone want to read it? Next one, I don't want to read too much. Next one, you want to read that? Jenny? The Brahma students say, yeah.
The Brahma students say, is Brahman the cause? Whence are we born? Whereby do we live? And whither do we go? O ye who knows Brahman, tell us, by whose command we abide, whether in pain or in pleasure. Should time or nature or necessity or chance or the elements be considered as the cause, or he who is called the Purusha, it cannot be their union either, because that is not self-dependent. And the self is also powerless, because there is independent of him a cause of good and evil.
All right, and next one, when you read that, the Aitareya Upanishad states.
Aitareya Upanishad states, in the beginning, this was but the absolute self alone. There was nothing else whatsoever. He created these worlds. He is Brahma, the creator. He is Indra, god of the gods and goddesses. He is
Prajapati,
Lord of all creatures. He is all these gods. He is manifest in 5 great elements like solid, air, space, liquid, and light. He is present in the minutest mixture of chemicals. He is those who are born out of seeds for moving and stationary beings. He is those born from an egg, from a womb, from moisture, and from a sprout. He is in horses, cows, persons, and elephants. Whatever breathing thing there is here, whether moving or flying or what is stationary, he is all.
Okay. And the next one, Shat Aswa Tara.
Yeah.
I think I have right one more word. Yeah.
Swetaswatatara.
Not Tatara. Just I just put two. You should cut off one TA. Swetaswatara.
Swetaswatara. Swetaswatara Upanishad states, he the only
the one.
He the one and undifferentiated, who by the manifold application of his powers produces in the beginning different objects and beings for a purpose which will never be known, and in the end withdraws the universe into himself, is indeed the self, luminous, supreme.
And the next one, Taittiriya
Upanishad states, the supreme being who is in you and the supreme being who is in the sun are the same. The enlightened man is not afraid of anything. After realizing the bliss of Brahman having created the universe, entered into that very thing, and having entered there it became the formed and the formless, the defined and the undefined, the sustaining and non-sustaining, the sentient and the insentient, the true and the untrue.
Okay, so I think that somehow when after reading this, you have a concept in general, okay, how the Indian religion think about the Creator, and then also the Creator is not only just create everything, but it can be anywhere as well. And it's very important also, he did mention that even that can be anywhere, that even in a person, not only just in animal, but in a person, anywhere. Even in a seed, that also have the kind of like, you could say seed or the image or the, actually they do have a word called gunas. We will talk that later. That's kind of like, how do they translate that? A kind of entity there. So that is the self, yeah, the entity of the self. And now once you read this, especially people who have read a little something about Buddhism, then they know that why, especially in Madhyamika, the emptiness school, you know, the Kongxin, the school, the Madhyamika or Zhongdao, you could say, the emptiness school, they have really are very careful about the so-called, there was something unseen, but there's a believing in there's a self there, you know. What we call swa power or 自性 in Chinese mean the nature, or and the other term is even lingan. We also talk about lingan as a kind of like seed, you know, a seed, or you could say somehow like a DNA, something like that. So the seed there. So and that also really in Buddhism are really, especially emptiness school, are really quite trying have a long lots of books writing about to refute that. But maybe for the Chinese, when they read this thing, they find interesting, but they don't know actually in Indian is so serious method for them. Because without this believing in the self, they're almost like there's no religion in India, in their understanding. But of course, having said that, like just now we mentioned in the book, talk about the Hindu and then the other religion called the Jain. The Jain is in a very interesting stage. Yes and no, okay, they are on that kind of in between. But Buddhism is almost like no, okay. And then the so-called, what the Indian people think as they are more local religion or their own local religion, definitely it's the self is a very important concept. Now, why don't we just go a little bit more and then finish that, we can have a little discussion. The second is that, and they believe that the realization of Brahma, is Brahma, B-R-A-H-M-A, right, wrong. So see how they say. You want to read that?
Oh, okay, my first
Advaita Prakarana.
Okay, number 2, realization
Of Brahma. Advaita Prakarana.
Brahma state, when mind does not get lost nor is scattered, when it stays motionless and does not appear in the form of objects, it merges with Brahma.
That's interesting. So, and now of course, how you can reach the Brahma, even though it's there. So the Indian religion is not only just, you know, giving you a notion of, okay, there was something like the Brahma who created a world, and also can create a world of the form and formless also. Even formless means no physical, but only consciousness. However, and they also giving this, like in this Advaita Brahma states that, so actually when the person have the mind in such a way, it could merge to the Brahma, you know. And that's the reason why in Indian religion, people are give up everything and trying to reach that state, because they want to have the ultimate, because to be merged to Brahma is ultimate bliss, happiness there. And it's kind of like enlightenment to them, you know. So, yes, and next one, Mundaka.
Upanishad state, the self is not comprehended by the eyes, by description, or by senses. It is not grasped by austerity or Vedic rituals. By virtue of knowledge of discrimination, when mind becomes pure, withdrawn from the world of senses, a person can conduct meditation and realize the self.
All right. Now, okay. Now, when we understand that, at least in general, they understand that there was a way actually you can realize the self. So, okay, or you could say the self also, that self it's also merged with the Brahma. Okay. Now let's say what is actually the Brahma is. Why I always type the wrong word, Brahma, but it become Braham. I guess the self Brahma. So the quality of Brahma. So, and can someone read it? Next one. Who's the next one? You want to read it?
May I nominate you?
Huh? No, I don't. It's all right. Yeah. I'm not. Oh, that's the Sanskrit word. No, just. Anyway, I can read that. Aitariya Upanishad declares, Salavan tat prajna netram, prajane pratistitam, prajanam brahma. Okay, this means.
Me?
Yes, this means.
So practicing the...
No, all this is guided by consciousness.
Question mark.
You don't know where.
Second line.
Third, the quality of Brahma.
Oh, okay.
Second line.
Now why you read it before me? Supposedly after me.
No, I read before because there's a Sanskrit. It's very hard for you to read that. Sarvanta prajna netram prajane pratisitan prajanam brahma. You can read after me. Okay. Okay. This means.
Okay. All this is guided by consciousness, wisdom. The entire universe is founded in consciousness, wisdom. Consciousness, wisdom is Brahma.
Okay. Actually, because that's the translation, they translate as consciousness. When you look at the word, why I put the Sanskrit here? Because the word is not using a consciousness. That's why I put a question mark. It should be wisdom, prajna. 就是般若蜜 in Chinese, 就是 prajna. So, according to this Upanishad, they will say, actually, all that is guided by wisdom, okay? And the entire universe is found, on that is based on to stand by the wisdom. You could understand that way. And the wisdom is the Brahma, okay? Okay. Now, this is give you a lot of interesting thing. Now, especially if you read Buddhist texts a lot, you will find a lot of Mahayana texts have a very similar style. I don't mean they have the same concept, but you can see how the culture later on really influenced that kind of the way you express things. But you don't argue that with me because this is for sure are very, very old, that during the Buddha's time, this kind of Sanskrit is there already. But in Pali, when you look at the so-called the Agama, early Buddhism, you don't have this kind of style. I guess because they're conscious about that. They don't want to have the same style because that kind of style will easily misleading people, okay? But anyway, when you learn Sanskrit, you know what I'm saying, especially when you read some texts. Anyway, this is not the Buddhist text, okay? Please understand. This is a non-Buddhist. This is a Veda, okay? Upanishad, okay? Belong to the Veda Upanishad. So it say, all this is guided by the wisdom, and the entire universe is found in the wisdom. Wisdom is Brahma. Okay. In other words, they also believe that by reaching that kind, merging oneself to the Brahma, that is the wisdom. Okay. Or you could put it in simple English. I mean, when you unite to that kind of Brahma, that consciousness there, that is the wisdom, and that is about Brahma. Okay.
I'm very confused by the terminology here because I feel like they refer to Brahma as one of the gods in Hindu.
No, it's only God, not one of the gods. It's the only God.
The ultimate God, but
Yeah.
it's also referring to Brahma in terms of like something like a constant self here.
Yeah, but in the early passage, that's why I put it there. Not here, I didn't put it here. They did mention that too, but he did say the Brahma can be everywhere, even in the person's self. Yes,
Because
right.
you're part of the Brahma.
Yeah.
Everything is a
You
part
could say that way, but here he didn't say that. He is everything, and even he can be in a person. He is even in the persons. Okay.
And a
And-
Brahmin
Yeah.
is somebody that.
No, Brahmin is just mean a religious. Maybe now you can translate Brahmin mean a priest. Maybe just translate that way.
Okay.
Either, or maybe in America usually don't translate a priest. Priest mean they don't married, but mostly they either they are two way. One, some they can be a priest. They don't against people be a priest not married, but in general they marry. So you could translate them as like what do you call pastors. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Brahmin mean a pastors. Yeah, you could even maybe more put it in American English. Yeah.
Isn't it important to think of Brahmin in Hinduism as the top of the caste system as well?
Oh, that's another thing. So that's when you talk about a caste, because the word Brahma actually had to be usually write as a long vowel R. That signifies he can produce as a feminine, okay? But it's very said is very clearly also the word Brahma, it's not female and not male. In other texts say that. Looks like I'm teaching Hindu now. It's not teaching Buddhism. but when you say the word Brahmin, okay, Brahmin, let's say the person was born as a caste, that Varuna, they call the word origin mean Varuna mean color. The color of the Brahmin, the color of like Kshatriya mean the royal, what do you call royal, what do you call
Noble.
nobles, or like the royal family or royal people. And then like Vaishesha, for example, the color of the Vaishesha means that the businessman, the handcraftsman, and all sort of people, and the low caste people, and another one. So that's another thing that you have to look at, not just a term, but they have a varna, the word mean color, the color of what, So Brahmin generally as kind of like, anyway, of course the word Brahmin comes from the original word Brahma, mean the God. But because the God actually born the religious people as the highest one, so that's why they call Brahmin. And they believe when the God, this is later actually not the earlier in Indian text, but it become like generally people, they take it that way. That's come later. That they have the place to mention that the God actually born the Brahmin through the head. In his head, he can transform like a soul out, and then they were born as a Brahmin. And the hands, the hands were the royal Kshatriya, they call, and then the body, the navel, stuff from the navel, they born this kind of labor, kind of like labor, including businessmen and everybody. And the feet born the low caste people. So that's why, unfortunately, in India, they have a caste system that even they call untouchable people, mean they have no caste even, because they are not kind of like, they are not part of that. So, and they almost like become, I don't know, only serving the people. But because of that, later on in the Hindu religion, of course, depends on if I talk of the religious people, they might be tell differently, I don't know, but I only can learn this from academic. So in academic generally understands, so later that's why there was one other text being invented, and to say that even these people, untouchable people, mean they have no caste people, no varna, no color. They actually still have the chance to be, in the heaven if they serve to these people, like that. Yeah. But please understand, this is the social construction. Some people understand this as a social construction. Not necessarily. Some people trying to separate this as a holy text say it one way, but the social construction another way. But usually we blame that because of the holy text say it that way. That's why they give chance for them to be that way. But it's not necessarily true, because if you look at the earlier one, they didn't mention in such a way. Only the later one, they do have such a concept. So, okay. I'm defending some the so-called Indian religion in the earlier time. Okay, all right. Okay, if no any other, so at least you don't have to be learned really, because I believe that if you want to learn so-called monastic religion, mean they believe in created God. I think the most complicated is in Indian religion. They have many, many texts, many, many commentary. And in all ancient time, I mean, there are so many many complicated ideas. Okay. Anyway, this is just a few passages. Now let's go as how does it put it like practicing the meditation? What is that to do with this, the God? Because you have to understand this passage. Otherwise, the whole Buddhist text, one day you read, you don't know why the Buddha say that. Actually, lots of Buddha time have a disagree with certain thing with regard to that. To meditation have no any objection, but the way they understand that is a God, that's how the Buddha thing is. I mean, at least the Buddhist perspective is different. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next one who's reading. Yeah, you. Practice the method of meditation, realizing one's innate power of self. Yeah.
Okay, 4, realizing one's innate power of self through meditation. Practicing the method of meditation, they realize that the power belonging to divine soul,
Deva Atman Shakti,
and innate personality,
Gunas.
He, being one, super
Intense.
all those causes, time, self, and the rest. Atman here is taken as
Synonymous
with
Purusha.
Purusha in verse 1.
Because just now we mentioned about a Purusha. Yeah. Mean the Atma. Okay.
Okay, we meditate on him who, like a wheel, has one
Fairly.
with 3 tires, 16 ends, 50 spokes, with 20 corner spokes and 6 sets of 8, whose one rope is manifold, who proceeds on 3 different roads, and whose illusion arises from 2 causes.
Okay, all right. I think that you don't have to think about that too much, but they have so many commentary about this, what they mean by that, okay? So I guess it's important is that now the word meditation is used. I want to put it here. Why? Because actually when he say practicing the method of meditations, the original word is dhyana anuyoga, dhyana yoga anugata, okay? So it means they use the word, here usually in India they translate meditation. That's why when you talk to Indian people, especially those who learn Sanskrit, and then you say meditation, they always think about the word dhyana in Chinese. Usually we translate dhyana as a meditation state, chana, just a thing. And this is why, I don't want to say too far away. This is not a very easy topic. I just want to say here, that's the reason why even in the text called Yoga Sutra, anyone heard about that? Okay. Yoga Sutra, they have a five stages of their meditation, and they believe the dhyana as a higher. And then you may find very funny because in Buddhism, dhyana is just like you have the first dhyana, second dhyana, and third dhyana, fourth dhyana. But to them, I remember even when I was in England, there was Indians who were really interested in meditation, like they believed they were young, they started to do meditation, and they know that I somehow know Buddhist meditation. And he thought we have the same idea. Anyway, after we have a conversation, looked like he was not very happy about it. That's what I think about. But it's okay, you know. But I just want to say, here very important in India, generally when they talk about dhyana, it's something that is the ultimate thing, because that is that, although it's a meditation, but that quality of the dhyana itself, the achieving of the dhyana itself, it means achieving the God, okay? Achieving the reaching or merging one into the God, okay? Because that's why I as I'm not expert in Hindu, so I cannot talk too much about it. Somehow they think that like and on that stage your mind is not moving, you can be minus, you can be what, but you are with the God, you know, okay? All right, okay. All right, okay, and the other is just to say, so kind of like God, you can be personalizing, or not only personalizing, like animated him, kind of like being like a thing. So almost like somehow like a Christian in a bit influenced by the Descartes school, that everything you could see the God, okay, something like that. Okay, almost like, because in other religion, Christian usually believe that the things are specially personal, created from the image of the God, right? So that everything you could actually be personalize it or animated it as the God. Okay. All right. So let's just, because this is not our class, but at least you have some idea now how Indians think that. Okay. The last one, the final goal of Upanishad, self-knowledge, self-discipline, and Atma. Okay. What is the final goal? Okay. So next, yeah.
The final goal of Upanishad, self-knowledge, self-discipline, and Atma. As oil in sesame seeds, as butter in milk, as water in shokha, as fire in fuel sticks, he finds in his own self that one, Atma, he, who sees him through satya, truthfulness, and tapas, austerities. 15?
Yeah, that is, sorry, I think it's not 15, 1.5.
Oh.
He sees all pervading, yeah.
He sees the all-pervading Atman as butter lying dormant in milk, rooted in self-knowledge and self-discipline, which is the final goal of the Upanishad, the final goal of the Upanishad. Vetasvatara Upanishad.
No, I think this may be wrong. The final goal of, the final goal of self, the final goal of Upanishad, the final goal of, no, the final goal of self and the final goal of.
So the first one is self, the second one is Upanishad.
No, there is a final goal of Brahma. Okay.
First one is Brahma.
Brahma, the final goal of Upanishad. Okay. The first one is Brahma. Okay. Yeah, that Brahma Upanishad Paramiti. Okay. All right. Why don't you read the conclusion, and then we can have a little discussion, and again we can have a little break first. I mean, this is too much of for you guys. Right. Conclusion, something like that. Yeah.
Is Swet
Asva.
Upanishad monotheistic, pantheistic, or monist? Text debate. Scholars have also expressed varying views on whether Tara Upanishad is monotheistic, pantheistic, or Doris Srinivasa in the book Many Heads, Arms, and Eyes states that the Upanishad is a treatise on theism, but it creatively embeds a variety of divine images, an inclusive language that allows 3 Vedic definitions for personal deity. The Upanishad includes verses wherein God can be identified with the Supreme Being, Brahman, Atman, self, soul. In Vedanta, monistic,
Theosophy.
Theosophy, verses that support dualism view of Samkhya
Samkhya
doctrines, as well as the synthetic novelty of triple Brahman, where a triune exists as the divine soul. Deva, the theistic God, individual soul, self, and nature.
Prakriti.
Matter, as depicted by Lee Siegel, and this is coming from a commentary, Theism in Indian Thought, Philosophy, etc. And further
Suchita.
Yeah, further references. Let's see.
And Suchita.
in the Essentials of Indian Philosophy, interprets the text to be introducing personal theism in the form of Shiva with a shift to monotheism, but in henotheistic context where the individual is encouraged to discover his own definition and sense of God. Robert Ernest Hume, however, in his Svetdananda Upanishad, the 13 principal Upanishads, interprets the Svetdananda Upanishad to be discussing a pantheistic God.
All right, thank you. All right. So, why generally why we want to mention that even though it looks like, especially when you talk about meditation, so the dhyana perspective, generally they still believe that by meditation you could merge to the Brahma. And by the merging of Brahma, I mean you are kind of unification, you reach the unification of the self, of what we call the small self into the big self, the Brahma self, okay? But however, in a scholar, but this is not because just a scholar, even that certainly have to do with like in India, I'm sure you know that they have so many different kind of gods, right? So, and this god's name, they also have this god's name mentioned in the holy text and the sacred text there. And that's why some scholars think this is more like the pantheism, okay, pantheistic religion. But however, pantheistic religion means 多神教. But even in the pantheistic religion also, but some actually argue that yes, even though they have a lot of pantheistic religion, but if you do the cross-reference understanding, you do find they are not pantheistic religion, actually they are monistic religion. When you say the monistic religion mean that every god actually merged to the one, okay, to the monistic religion. But then some others actually say this is not a monistic religion. By very beginning itself, the god had no form. So, and even though it created form and formless, so you cannot understand as a monistic religion, but you rather understand as a monism. So mean just that, you know, like not, yes, it's only one, but you know, the only one you cannot say is merging. So that's called a monism. Anyway, now you learn some new term in English. Usually the terms refer to, you know, mean there are so many, when you study religion, so you have the religion called pantheistic religion, monism religion, and the I forgot other terms. There's so many other terms too. So, and as a different kind of religion. Anyway, so, but this is, I mean, this is a very good way too. Now you have somehow, you now somehow understand in Indian religion, it's not as you think, that's so simple, like you saw they are worshipping a god. Actually, that's the most popular one too in India, but then you really so-called the good teacher, the so-called the Brahmin, who are really the priest or pastor, you could say, they really recite the text and they learn well. They do not really think that that's the way of the Hindu, like worship the god, because the ultimate reality is about meditation, and the meditation reality also to reach, to merge with the God, you know, the ultimate God. Okay, all right. I think we could just stop give you guys for 10 minutes break and think about it. But when you have time, you know, don't idle other thing. But if you read Chinese, you read the Chinese one. I want you to read the next text. That is on a page 5. Is that on a page 5, right? No, not a page 1. On a page 4. Yeah, from the Digha Nikaya, and yeah, you just go through that. You don't have to. You on the page 5, the small section of moral discipline, you can jump that one, okay? And then you can jump the other, because that when you have time to read it. But if you have time, you can finish it. But you need to jump up to, because I don't want to. I print the whole text for you, because this is one of my favorite texts, and also this is important for our next discussion. From page 5, there's a subtitle called "A Small Section of Moral Discipline." You don't have to read that if you have no time, but at least you need to finish until that the page 5, the miracle of instruction, right? To this page 11. mindfulness and clear comprehension and contentment. No, that's too much for you too. Okay, page 13, a visit to the Devas. Okay. From page, after when you read until page 5, then jump to page 13. But or you could just read the Chinese, because Chinese, I cut off all these things if you read Chinese one. All right, I will see you in 10 minutes. Yeah.